A House Budget Committee approves an early education spending plan. Eugenics Compensation legislation earns early favor, and we discuss school excellence with Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger next.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. We open this program with news on the House's movement on a new education budget. Education spending is over 50% of North Carolina's budget. This current fiscal year was defined by spending reductions, but the 2012-2013 spending plan that cleared a House subcommittee spares the reductions but leaves no spare funds. The House Education Budget Subcommittee approved a 2012-2013 education spending plan Thursday morning. Budget writers say they were given an additional $233 million to save K-12 teaching jobs that are threatened because federal stimulus money runs out in a few weeks.
When we took the reins of the budget, there were state-funded positions that used to be funded with state dollars that were funded with one-time federal money. So we've had to try to dig our way out of that hole. And I think that we've done a pretty good job of achieving that.
Public school spending restores much of the funding that backs the two schools for the deaf and the school for the blind, keeping them open. The governor's schools would receive a $200,000 one-year funding. K-12 spending jumps by about $238 million over 2011-2012 and prevents spending cuts deeper than those approved this budget year.
The cuts that they already made last year. They've already been made. So we're just saying you're not going to have to make any further cuts this year.
The community college system would receive a $10 million one-year infusion of cash for retraining long unemployed workers. The system would also see required local spending reductions lessened by about 5%. Enrollment growth funding is reduced in the House plan because estimates suggest enrollment will decline. Some Democrats say the Republican Education Subcommittee chairman did a good job with the money they were provided, but that North Carolina's current level of education spending is really nothing to brag about.
This simply means we're in a position, if this budget passes, that there shouldn't be additional cuts this year, but that hardly does anything for a state that has a 10% unemployment rate and has classroom size rising. It's not going to improve the educational quality. It's simply saying, but we're not going to hurt it anymore.
The House Education Spending Plan calls for ending state subsidies for college scholarships given to out-of-state students, like the Moorhead Scholarship. UNC Hospitals would lose its state subsidy completely. Local-level university spending reductions are lessened by about 3% in the House education budget. UNC-TV, this network, is part of the 2012-2013 budget adjustments. The House would cut the network's budget by $1.5 million. This follows a reduction of $1.2 million in the 2011-2012 budget. Education Subcommittee Chairman Representative Brian Holloway says the broader House budget will not include tax increases, and all spending under his plan uses existing tax rates and revenue collections.
I think this is the budget that will move forward in the House. You know, we're yet to see what the Senate will do, but I think this is the framework in place.
The Education Subcommittee's budget heads to the full House Appropriations Committee. The Senate Education Committee began talks on an alternative education plan aimed at increasing elementary school literacy rates and holding teachers more accountable for their classroom results. This bill would require entire schools to receive a grade based on an A through F scale, much like a student. Students would be required to read at grade level before moving up, and social promotions would be banned. Teachers could be dismissed for substandard classroom results. This school bill carries a $46 million price tag its first year if it becomes law. Senator Phil Berger, the President Pro Tem of the Senate, is behind this Excellence in Schools Act. Thanks for being on the show, number one.
Sure, thank you, Kelly.
Comprehensive bill comes out in the short session from you, and conventional wisdom is you do these kind of bills in long session when you have months and months to work it through and stew on it. Why was the timing right in 2012?
The timing's right because the need is there. It's time for us to reform many parts of our public education system, but it's particularly time for us to add a needed focus on reading in the early grades. And you know, we talked about this last year when we adopted the budget last year. We added $60 million to the budget to fund teachers in grades 1, 2, and 3 in order to help alleviate some class size issues there. So this is just following up on that initiative. We introduced the bill back in April, gave people plenty of time to take a look at it, solicited responses and input, and it's time to go ahead and move forward.
Well, you moved forward in the committee earlier this week. In fact, we were there eavesdropping on your speech, and you were challenged by the Democrats. The minority whip, Josh Stein, stepped in with a few comments for you. Check this out.
Ability to come in with literacy and numeracy skills, and now we're talking about doing some remedial work in K-3. So I'm not going to object to what you're doing here in K-3. I just think you're looking at one corner of a very large canvas, and I encourage you to broaden the view.
I'm not assuming, and I hope you're not, that we're not doing good things, because you couldn't tell me all the good things you were doing in the K-3 pre-K programs last year when you were wanting money, and they're doing tons of those things. To assume that we've got to cover all that in this bill, that they're not doing any of this stuff, I think is erroneous. And I think you'll find we've got some good programs. You told me how great they were, and I believed you. And we will look at that, but this bill can't cover God's green earth. You got to have so much in it, and I think we have. Senator Brown.
God's green earth, not covered in this bill, but it is K-3. Why not look down to pre-K?
Well, here's the thing. I think the interesting thing about the comments that we received was that they didn't criticize the substance of the bill. Their criticisms generally were that, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, my question is, why didn't they do those things when they were in control for all those years, if there are things that need to be done? And they may be things that need to be done. But the bill's a good bill. It addresses a specific problem. It is not intended to cover all of the ills in public education, but it is intended to cover effectively one of the specific things that we need to improve.
The financial impact of this $46 million in the next year, if it becomes law and growing, do you see the extra emphasis on the funding going towards literacy helping school children, or the provisions allowing teachers to be dismissed for ineffectiveness being the driver to get classroom achievement up throughout North Carolina?
You know, ultimately the one thing that improves student achievement more than anything else is having a highly qualified teacher in the classroom. So while if we get the policy right in terms of what the substance of the curriculum is and how we deal with kids that are having trouble reading, yet we don't deal with the question of teacher quality, then the bill is incomplete. So both are important, and both are critical to the bill being successful.
You get this through and get it into law in about 2016-17, the tab will be over $100 million a year towards this particular target you're reaching. Will economic growth in North Carolina cover that with excess tax revenue, or do you see the budget shifting more K-12 funding around to focus on literacy and teacher accountability and the like?
You know, it may be a little bit of both. I think we have an opportunity to repurpose some of the dollars that we currently spend for things that are a higher priority, and I don't know of a higher priority in our K-12 system than making sure that kids know how to read. But it may take more money, and I've said all along that you know, the other side, the Democrats keep saying put more money in the system. Well, our answer to that is, let's fix the system before we ask the taxpayers to put more money into the system. So this is part of trying to get the policy right. Once we have the policy right, the people of North Carolina have long shown that they support public education, and I think they'll continue to do that.
I've heard a lot more than I've read that this proposal, as it's been reviewed by the House leadership and others, very lukewarm at this point. Have you told your Senate budget writers, I want this as part of our version of the budget, and then you sit down at the table and hash this through?
You know, we've not gotten to the point of dealing specifically with what's going to be in the Senate budget. We're still waiting on the House to send us theirs, and we'll see what modifications need to be made to that.
And looking inwardly to the Republican Party, when you roll this out as ambitious as it is, did you consult with the Pat McCrory campaign, who has his ideas he wants to run through North Carolina if elected, not to mention the House leadership, and now, of course, you are on the table with your own proposal?
You know, we've talked to a broad range of people, people who are running for governor. I would invite them to look at the bill. I think they have. I'm interested in what their comments are. I think that there's broad support for what the goals are. Everybody might have a little different idea of how we get to the goal. This is the way that, that many of us in the Senate see as the right path. I think that as people study it, we'll continue to generate additional support.
Senator Phil Berger, President Pro Tem, thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
A bill reversing 9 cities' involuntary annexation actions is one House vote from reaching Governor Perdue's desk. It's House Bill 5. It would repeal involuntary annexations for Kinston, Lexington, Rocky Mount, Wilmington, Asheville, Marvin, Southport, Goldsboro, and Fayetteville. If this bill becomes law, the areas currently facing involuntary annexation under this bill could not be involuntarily annexed for 12 years. Legislation tweaking existing involuntary annexation restrictions also needs a final House vote before heading to Governor Perdue. Current law allowed property owners to challenge involuntary annexation efforts by a petition, but a judge said that was unconstitutional, that a petition omits local voters who may not own property. The legislation eliminates that petitioning requirement and requires cities to hold local elections when challenged on an annexation effort. A bipartisan House committee vote is fueling a eugenics compensation bill's movement towards a full House vote. The state eugenics board held authority to sterilize people against their will from 1933 to 1974. While many eugenics victims have died, many are still alive, and supporters want them compensated. A House Judiciary Committee heard public feedback this week on legislation that could pay restitution to victims of North Carolina's now closed eugenics program.
The word compensation is being used. Compensation is kind of a counterbalance, an offset to be equivalent to what was done. You could never do anything to be equivalent to what was done to the victims.
The bill, as it's currently written, would compensate living eugenics program survivors as well as the families of recently deceased eugenics victims, a point opposed by many families who've had family members die years ago.
This is a huge smack in my family's face, and the legislators should vote for all victims, whether they're deceased or living. It should matter whether or not they have been verified as victims of the North Carolina Eugenics Board.
Forsyth County Representative Larry Womble says this current bill is not the perfect bill, but it carries overwhelming bipartisan support, and it follows the recommendations of a special task force created to craft eugenics restitution policies.
North Carolina was the third most populous state in this nation to sterilize its own citizens, little boys and girls who had not done anything wrong. They were not criminals.
That House Judiciary Committee overwhelmingly passed this bill, but an overwhelming vote is not a unanimous vote.
The eugenics program was despicable, to say the best for it. But everything I read and everyone I talk to or hear make it sound like it's North Carolina's problem and only North Carolina. The eugenics movement was a worldwide movement.
Onslow County State Representative George Cleveland opposes eugenics compensation.
People today paying for something that happened in the past, I do not believe is correct. I don't think it's right.
House Majority Leader Paul Stam says the state can't turn back the clock, but it can offer financial relief for victims and their families.
Living amongst us are 1,000 or 2,000 people who today suffer because their bodies have been invaded, changed against their will by an act of an agency of the state of North Carolina.
Representative Rep Parman joins us to discuss eugenics compensation. Historically, Representative Parman, do you think state officials between 1933 and 1974 were being evil or malicious towards these eugenics victims, or were they acting on the basis of science and what they thought was a good idea for society?
Interesting, they were acting on what they thought was good for society and in the best interests of North Carolina.
How did this remain a secret all those years? Because I understand it was uncovered. The program had been practically forgotten by historians and archivists.
Absolutely, it was an accidental find by a professor doing research. And because since 1974 there had not been any action from the Eugenics Board, those records were actually in the archive. Nobody discussed it because we were no longer legally doing eugenics under the auspice of the board.
So many of the victims of the eugenics program have now died. How many are left living?
There's an estimate of about 2,500 people living out of the 7,600 recorded, documented eugenic victims.
It has to be documented to be affected by this legislation. You can't make a claim.
Absolutely. In other words, there has to be a record showing that you were authorized to be sterilized by the Eugenics Board.
That would be involuntarily.
Involuntarily. Yes.
And were records destroyed, or are you confident that there is a solid body of work here to compare victims against the documentation?
We are pretty certain and pretty positive that the records are intact. They were actually in our archives. So we don't think any records were destroyed. One of the things that have come up is that some people were actually sterilized in counties and that not authorized by the board, that think they're eligible, but they're not under this bill.
What changed down here politically? Because Representative Womble says 11-year battle, much of that was under Democratic control, so you were in the majority, but the Republicans take over and this thing gets fast-tracked for this short session. What happened?
I think that the Republicans actually looked at what the state's involvement with this was, and the Speaker Tillis became interested, and it became a personal issue for him, and he convinced his colleagues this was the right issue and the right way for North Carolina to move in supporting a bill to compensate these people.
You've clearly told the committee this week that $50,000 was the recommendation of a task force of experts.
Absolutely.
The symbolism behind $50,000, what does that say to the victims who survived, who could receive a check from the state tax-free?
Well, what we're hoping that they understand is that we do not think $50,000 is paying them off, but to acknowledge, particularly in these bad economic times, even as with the state's budget and we don't have enough money to fund a lot of things we need to fund, that we are acknowledging that the state made bad policy, there's bad legislation, and we just want to say we acknowledge that.
Has the money been found among the state's general fund to pay these claims?
Well, it's in the governor's budget, and we're sure that it will remain in the budget, and we will find the additional monies. We've had some extra income. That's a good thing. So, yes, we are pretty confident that the money will be found.
You have great confidence in the House, but this bill needs to clear the Senate as well. Have you had any conversations with Senate leaders about the possibilities of getting this bill heard?
Absolutely. As you know, Senator McKissick from on the Senate side, he's been talking to President Pro Tem Berger, and we understand that they are on board and want to see this bill passed and the compensation paid in this session.
Representative Rep Parman, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Senate Republicans unveil an alternative energy bill that includes natural gas exploration. It is Senate Bill 820. It outlines guidelines for oil and gas exploration policy and would allow fracking to begin in the year 2014. Public schools and the Department of Transportation would be required to buy natural gas-powered vehicles. Interstate rest stops would feature electric vehicle charging stations. Senator Bob Ruto has authored this legislation, much more well-rounded in terms of approach in 2012. It's a big bill, Dr. Ruto. Can you bite it off in a short session?
Well, this really is the first step to what is a comprehensive energy policy for the state of North Carolina. Affordable and available energy is part of our plan for revitalizing and retooling the North Carolina economy, for businesses to be competitive, for people to have affordable energy at their homes and as they drive their vehicles. And we believe that this is the first step to accomplishing that goal.
Last year, it was all about the hydraulic fracturing for natural gas. Things didn't progress, obviously, as you would have liked. You've added natural gas, some mandates for state government vehicles, school buses, and the like. How have those additional measures affected the feedback you're hearing on the overall bill?
Well, I think people are very pleased with that because as we start developing a source of natural gas right now onshore, and then subsequently offshore, if Washington starts to recognize that we do need a comprehensive energy policy that promotes domestic energy production, so it makes us less dependent on foreign sources of energy, which proves to be not to our advantage. But in the scheme of things, people are excited about the fact that not only are we finding an energy source as clean natural gas, but also having a demand increase when we can go ahead and save $2 a gallon from between diesel and natural gas in the use for our school vehicles, which could save tens of millions of dollars. So I'd rather use that natural gas money savings to be able to go into the classroom than to be on the highway.
If you have natural gas powered state vehicles, are there enough vehicles on the road buying natural gas, or is the state buying enough natural gas to put a dent in the market to persuade, convenience stores to start installing these pumps?
Well, it starts starting the ball down the hill. For example, I know that we, by having our school bus fleet across the state, implementing a natural gas will be a great start. Having our vehicle fleet, having Department of Transportation, who is supportive of this in trucks, vehicles, converting over to a combination natural gas and regular gas. And then all of a sudden people start to recognize, wait a minute, this is a great way to save money. We're talking about, as I alluded to, between what was $4 a gallon gas can be bought for $2 less. And so this is a great opportunity with a clean source of energy. And I think that, in its own right, is the incentive to convert over to that. But, we're preparing ourselves for the future.
Is there any way to swing over people who are critics of the fracking plan to say it's dangerous, you're going to cause these minor earthquakes? You got Sharon Harris right up the road from Raleigh, yet right up the road also from Lee and Chatham County, where there could be some good natural gas deposits.
Right. Well, this is the time that by going through the process and spending 2 years trying to find the rules and regulations that would allow us to safely deliver this energy source, it requires a systematic approach, one step after another, to be sure it's the best practice, safe, environmentally sound type of regulations and the ultimate product will be a state of the art. It'll be best practice. It'll be, environmentally secure, and it just requires the best minds to be able to do this, and that's what we're trying to do.
What do you make of the governor's executive order dealing with taking time to study the issue of natural gas exploration?
Well, I think the governor will recognize that as we step through this process, and I've mentioned one before, this is a massive project. This is not one small thing. The only way to solve that is incrementally taking steps and studying it, what is the best practice, what is the safest method, and then each safe step will lead to a state-of-the-art rule and regulations. And I think the governor is supportive of our effort in regards to the ultimate goal of having energy, sustainable energy for North Carolina, and I think she'll recognize and support our bill in the future.
Senator Bob Ruto, thanks for being on the show this week.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
A Republican House and Senate member announced legislation to reform the juvenile legal process. The proposal would move 16 and 17-year-old defendants out of the adult system and back into the juvenile system. Only misdemeanor offenders would be processed as juveniles.
So I think what we're doing is moderating the swing of the pendulum to take into effect the current day, the knowledge that we've got about teenagers, their brains, what abilities they've got to make decisions, and also the situations that we've given them the freedom to indulge in.
16 and 17-year-olds who commit felonies would still be charged as adults. The Senate Education Committee heard a bill to regulate vending machine food options in public schools. Foods not offered through state or federal food programs would face this new regulation. Elementary school students could not use vending machines on campus.
If we know there's a problem and we know that we can have an impact on it, it's our responsibility to do it. Passing this bill will allow children to have healthy choices in their vending machines or in these school choices that they have.
The State Board of Education would write the rules for calories, fat, sugar, and sodium content in what's called competitive school foods. The House Education Committee endorses measures to expand advanced placement testing throughout North Carolina high schools. Representative Hugh Blackwell says Florida expanded AP testing participation, and that's the model this bill follows. The proposal contains performance bonuses for schools and teachers based on AP test results.
One of the sort of spillover effects in Florida has apparently been that as these more rigorous courses have been encouraged for more and more students, that it has had a beneficial effect, in particular in some of the low-performing schools, in adding more rigor and higher expectations to the rest of the curriculum as well.
About those advanced placement bonuses for teachers, they would range from $50 to $500 for student performances on AP testing, up to a $2,000 maximum. The governor's signature on legislation will shore up Medicaid finances through June 30th. A maximum $205 million could be transferred into Medicaid from other state agency budgets. The money would cover the costs of paying doctors who see Medicaid patients. The bill would prohibit any funding shift if those shifts today increase Medicaid's financial obligations in 2012-2013. The House Appropriations Committee holds the bill that would allow live card games at the Cherokee Casino. Democratic and Republican Senate leaders are behind this bill. Live card games with human dealers could generate 400 local jobs and up to $90 million over its 30-year life. There is some House skepticism to expanding gambling in North Carolina. Governor Perdue has signed the gaming deal with the Cherokee Nation, but it needs legislative approval. All weekend, you can find the team online. Search Legislative Week in Review on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter by following @NCN Leg Week and our internet webpage, unctv.org/Leg Week. That's our show for this week. We'll see you next time.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.